In this video, we're going to look at a handful of our favorite visual element plugins that you can install into your application to extend functionality. Now, there are many other visual elements that you can take a look at in the plugin marketplace by opening up the Add Plugins window here, right? You can search through these. These plugins that we're going to go through in this video are favorites. They're staples, actually. We see them come up quite frequently across many applications, and a lot of different apps can benefit from them. Now, of course, if you don't need this functionality, then don't install them. There's really no purpose to have them in your application. Really just keep the plugins that you're going to use installed and no more. Now, this video is also going to focus only on visual element plugins. In later lessons, we'll look at plugins for workflows and dynamic data sources. Now, these plugins also happen to be all published by Bubble. Again, if you go to the plugin marketplace, there are many other fantastic visual elements published by Bubble and other third-party publishers. So don't feel like this is the only list available to you, or that there aren't other, awesome plugins that you can use in the marketplace. There are literally, as of this recording, thousands of plugins, and this is really just to help you get started with some quick extensions of functionality that you will likely need, because we do see them come up quite a bit. Okay, so the first plugin that we're looking at here is the Bootstrap Star Rating Input. So if you have functionality where your users are going to rate things or give some kind of a review, this is a great common type of interactivity that you can add here. So this is an input because technically the user is interacting with this to output some numerical value. So we can find, now that we've installed that plugin, the star rating is something we can add to our design. So I'm just going to draw it onto my page, and you have a handful of settings here for the appearance properties, the size, right? You can change that. It's a very out-of-the-box kind of a solution. It makes it really easy to get up and running quickly. You can also define whether you want whole star ratings or half star ratings, colors. Now, in order to know what the value of this rating is, you just simply need to reference the element itself. Now, I'm going to do this in a text element, but you can also do this in workflows, if you're going to save this number somewhere. So I'm just going to insert dynamic data in my text here and reference this element and go to its value. Okay, so that will simply display the number, the numerical representation that I selected with my star. So before I choose anything, you see it's at 0. If I go to 5 stars, you see that nice little animation there. Or maybe 2.5, right? Okay, so we can change this, and it's just a real-time representation of my selection. Nothing has actually been saved to the database at this point. It's just kind of happening on the page right now. But you can save the star ratings value to your database if you want to record that selection. All right, so there you go. There's the star rating input, very easy to work with. The next one is draggable elements. So this lets you create drag and drop functionality in your application, so your users can actually pick something up and move it around and trigger workflows from it. So we do get a handful of elements and workflow components as well. So I'm going to just show you what these are here with a little preview. So the first two elements are containers. Okay, so you have regular groups, repeating groups, pop-ups. Now this plugin will give us two special group containers. The first is the drop area. And you can think of this like, the drop zone where you're going to drag something on top of if you want to trigger a workflow of some kind. Okay, now you can change the background color. This group can also act as a data source, just like a regular group. Basically anything a regular group can do, this can do as well, but you do need to use this element in order to trigger a workflow when something has been dragged onto it. You can select the tolerance for when that workflow will trigger. So the group that you drag over the drop zone can either be intersecting it where it doesn't have to fit totally inside of it, or you can require it to fit completely inside. Most cases, we're just looking at an intersect tolerance. So then the other container element is the actual draggable group that is going to be moved around. This is the thing that the user will pick up. So I'm going to draw one of these onto the page, and I'm going to change the background color so that we can see it a little bit better. Let's do this blue here. Okay, and again, this also functions like a regular container. You can give it a data source by defining the type of content. You can style it just like a regular group, but this now has the ability to be picked up. And you do have a couple of settings here to customize it further. I do want to make sure that this element is droppable. This is something that we need if we're going to fire a workflow. You can also tell Bubble what to do with this once it has triggered that workflow. Do we want it to disappear, or do we want it to move back to the original position? Okay, so let's say hide group for now. Now, before I go and preview this, I'm going to add something to my page so that we can see that a workflow has run. I'm just going to show a little alert message here that says success right? So that's just going to be displayed there. And in the workflow, we're going to access the workflow event that is that comes with the plugin, which is this one right here. A drop area has a group dropped onto it. Okay, and so here it's going to find our drop zone. This functions somewhat like a custom event as well, in that it can take a data source. So when you are triggering a workflow and you need to reference, the data source that has been dropped onto it, you have that capability of passing data every which way. Okay, now all I really want to do right now is just show my alert message just to prove that I have triggered the workflow. All right, so we're going to preview this. Okay, and you can get a lot fancier with this. I'm just kind of showing you the core components here. So here's my drop zone. You see how I can pick this up, and when I let go, it just goes back to the position it came from. But now I'm going to intersect it. Notice that it doesn't need to be fully inside for the background color to change. There's a condition on that drop zone doing that. And when I let go here, you see how it triggered my workflow and showed my alert message. All right, so it was just that intersection there, and I dropped the group onto the drop zone. And there we go. That's our workflow there for that. This element also comes with another kind of standalone action, which is to move a draggable group. So you can programmatically move something. I'm going to do a little example here. So let's have a button to say move group, and I'm going to create a duplicate of this. All right, let's make this a different color so that we can see it. And all right, so this, we're going to have it programmatically move this green group, so not where the user is touching it. Okay, so this is under the element actions underneath our new section here, since we've installed the plugin, move a draggable group, and we're going to select, let's see here, we do need to make sure that it is draggable. It's not coming up because of, let's see here, we do not want it to be droppable. That's the thing that we were missing. All right, so now this will become available. And we have a couple of options for how we define its movement. Do we want it to move relative to another element, or do we want to go off of specific coordinates? All right, so let's use another element, and let's actually move it to maybe the top of the page. So I'm just going to select the index itself, right? That's the page that we're on. And that way it'll move to the top. Now I can offset it, right? If I want it to be the top, but maybe 20 pixels below or something, I can change those numbers here. And then we can define the duration of that movement. So this is in milliseconds. This is going to be half a second it's going to take to get from where it is to the top of the page. So let's take a quick look at that. All right, so I'm just going to click my button to trigger that action. Here we go. Click on the button, and there it has moved to the top of the page. All right, and so those offsets can help you change that. Now this is still a draggable group. Right, so you can mix and match all of these actions and designs however you need. Right, so a lot of really cool things that you can do with that. I'm going to remove all of this so we can move on to our next plugin. All right, so the next one is Ionic Elements. Now this is just extra libraries of visual elements that you can add to your app. Bubble does have a default checkbox and also a default icon libraries, but you get two extra ones here with just different appearance properties. The toggle is simply like a switch that you don't have natively in Bubble. So if you ever need something that is specifically like a left or right or on or off switch, this is a great element for that kind of thing. So I'll show you what this looks like. It's very modern, and you can change the colors here. And basically the output of this input, right? This is another input, and the value of this output is going to be a yes or no value. It's a Boolean, right? Because it's either switched on or off. The wording here in the plugin settings is checked or unchecked, but at the end of the day, the value of this can be saved to a yes or no field in your database, and you can create conditions whether it's on or off, right? So a lot of really great functionality there. It does function very similarly to a checkbox because, a checkbox is also either checked or unchecked. And let's take a look at the Ionic checkbox here so you can see what that looks like. Right, so it's a little more modern, it's a little bigger as well compared to the default checkboxes, but they're great for mobile designs especially. So you have those options there, and then you also have an Ionic icon library, which I actually find to be more modern looking. These are much thinner. I believe you have more options than Bubble's default icon library, which is this one right here. So we're currently looking at the Ionic icons. You can just increase your options there for visualizations. The other element that comes with the Ionic plugin is Ionic Range. And this is essentially like a slider, right? Okay, so you can set the minimum and maximum of your slider. You can use a text element similar to how I did that with the the star rating, where you can display the ionic range's value. So if they're at, the lowest point here, then the value is 0. If they're at the rightmost position, then they're at value 10, given our specifications here. And you can see that these accept dynamic values. So maybe the user is in control of what the minimum and maximum is, or maybe you pull these numbers from the database. You can also control the step. Maybe you want to use in whole steps or half steps or quarter steps, right? You can also change the color of the track. So a handful of extra elements here to just give you different options for appearance properties. Again, these tend to be more popular for mobile-focused designs, so you can take a look and play around with that. The next one is a multi-file uploader. So Bubble does have a regular file uploader input, which we can find right here, but this only accepts one file at a time. So if you know that you want your users to upload multiple files at once, right, save them a couple clicks, then definitely recommend installing this plugin to make things easier. So you have a couple of settings here around how many files they can upload, but at the end of the day, this does output the list of all of those files. And I'm just going to show you here with a quick text element. If I refer to this multi-uploader's value, we are going to get a list of all of those files. All right, so play around with that. It's really great for file-heavy applications. The next one is the multi-select dropdown. So very similar. Bubble has a default dropdown, which is this element right here, which lets you select only one thing at a time. And I'll show you the difference here. Right? So let's do this dropdown. I'm going to do static choices. So we'll say blue, green, red, like this. And then I'm going to add the multi dropdown, which is the plugin right next to it to show you the difference. Okay, I'm going to have the same choices, blue, green, red. Okay, you of course have various appearance properties for what these look like. Now the multi dropdown functions a bit more like tags. Okay, so here's the regular single dropdown, very standard. You can change the sizing, you can change the colors. The value of this is simply the choice that I selected there. With the multi-select, I'll see my choices and I can choose more than one. Right, and they kind of function like tags there, and you can deselect like that. You can change the colors of the tags, even the little X icon. You can change the borders, and you can really customize this to look however you want. But the value of this is a list of whatever your data type is, whether it's just a list of text or something dynamic that's coming from your database or some other source. All right, so you can use dynamic choices here. All right, so there's your multi dropdown, very popular for needing to multi-select things. The next plugin is the rich text editor. So this is Bubble's editor so that users can type, big pieces of content and be able to format them on their own. And this is great because you have actually various levels of customizations that you can give your users. So I'm going to add this to the page so we can see what this looks like. I'm going to make it nice and big. So think of this as, if your users are writing emails through your application, or if they're creating blog posts, or like they're setting up listings with descriptions. If you want to give them the ability to format their content, this is a great tool. By default, if you weren't going to have this and you were going to use an element that wasn't a plugin, the fallback would really be this multi-line input. But the thing about the multi-line is that there's no formatting. It's just a plain text, box that you can type into, of course, paragraphs and things like that, but there's no formatting that comes with it. Right, so if you need a little bit more, then you can use this here. And I do encourage you to play around with the different style complexities. The full will give you all of these different choices. Medium will give you a little bit less, right? And light will give you, basic will give you the fewest amount of options there. Now, the output of this rich text editor, I'm just going to move it to the side over here, is essentially the content exactly as it's been formatted. So I'm going to put this text here and just reference my rich text inputs value like this. All right, so I'm going to refresh the page so we can see a little bit of an example what it looks like. You can also, of course, add a border around this so we can kind of have an enclosed box, but that's not the default. So I'm going to say hello world and maybe a couple line breaks here. This is a demonstration. All right, so I'm going to highlight this. Let's make this kind of a heading 1, right? So it's much larger and it's going to reflect over here once I just click outside of the input. We can make this bold, we can change the color to this green, and it's just going to reflect over here. So this content you can save to your database, and Bubble will output it the exact same way as is. All right, so that's just the rich text inputs value. Very, very cool plugin there. Now, also, some of these things, there are other versions of these types of elements in the plugin marketplace. Other people have created, different takes on these. So don't feel like you're, going to be tied to them. The reason we're going through these is because they're staples. They've been around for quite a while. And, we always like it when Bubble publishes these types of elements because we know that they're going to be supported long term. But there are some other rich text editors in the plugin marketplace that can also do other things. The slide bar menu is a really simple, basic way of creating a menu that comes in from the side of the page. If you have a simple menu, this is great. I mean, it's more like an out-of-the-box menu system. It's also very popular for mobile designs, but you can, of course, use it for any kind of design. And you can see that this comes with the menu element itself and then a workflow so that you can do something when a user selects a menu option. So I'll show you how this works. I'm going to select the menu. And basically the trigger point is this icon here, but you can configure it to display all of your choices within the property editor here. So I can change the color, if I want it to be blue instead, I can do that. And I'm going to have this opening from the left, but you can also have it on the other side of the page. And we're just going to have these, we'll just keep the two default options there, option 1, option 2. Okay, I have some settings here around the width of the menu, like lots of different positioning and styling choices there. So let's just refresh the page here so we can see what it looks like with just, barely any adjustments. I think I only changed the color. So when I click this is already set up for me, right? This animation, if I click on it again, it goes away, right? And this is highlighting for me is when I hover over it. Now I've clicked on that and it went away and nothing really happened. It's because I didn't program it to do anything. And that's what that workflow event is for. So if I go into the workflows, go back to my elements, here is the option available for me. When an option is clicked, right? When an option is clicked, then what do I want to do? Well, let's see here. Let's do an alert message. And let's actually change the message dynamically in the workflow just so you can see a couple of examples of working with things a little differently. So when this is clicked, we're going to show the message. Whoops, not that one. Show the alert message. Yes, and I'm going to change the alert to say I clicked on option 1. And I only want this to show if this slide bar menu's current option is option 1. All right, now I'm going to copy this and paste this. And if I chose option 2, then I'm going to change the message and say I clicked on option 2. Now this is just a quick example to show you that I can do different things based on what the selection was. So in reality, you're going to do things like you're going to navigate the user to another page, or you might change a custom state. Okay, and the important thing is when you're setting up those conditions to reference the option, it needs to be an exact match to how you have it written here. It's case sensitive in everything. You don't want to have any extra spaces. You want to make sure everything is capitalized. It's spelled the exact same way. So if you do change the way an option is written here, make sure you update your workflow so that this is also written the same way. All right, so let's refresh here and let's just do a little test. So I'm going to open it up. I'm going to select option 1. You can see I clicked on option 1. I'm going to click it again, option 2. All right, so it's triggering those dynamically because it knows which option I chose. All right, and there you have it. These are our kind of staple plugins for visual elements. A lot of applications will find benefits from these. Again, don't install them if you're not going to use them. You really just want to keep installed what you are actually going to use in your app. But I encourage you to, get your hands on them if you do think that they're going to be beneficial for your app, to play around with them, see all the settings. I showed you kind of the core components of how they need to be set up and how they work, but you can get a lot more comprehensive with them, mixing and matching things with all of the other elements and designs on your page. All right, we'll see you in the next lesson.